Sure, no one will find out because I built this basement with great care, right? Thank you for making such a beautiful room just for me, a young woman said with love in her voice. When Eric replied, I couldn't find the words to describe how I felt. What's going on? I couldn't think, because my mind was jumbled. Suddenly, the high-pitched voice of a woman sighing could be heard in the hallway. That's not possible. Not believable. Something seemed off about the way my husband had been acting lately, but when I saw it for myself, I was even more shocked than I thought I would be. Jen, I love you so much. Eric, I'm so happy. I love you too. The way they said they loved each other made it sound like fate had tied them together. Who would have thought that my husband would be having an affair with a stranger in the basement of our new home? I put my shaking hands together in front of my chest and shut the basement door behind me. I tried to think of what to do next, very hard. This is Kelly Simpson, and I'm 31 years old. I work for a company that makes websites. This is what I've been good at since I was a kid, so I was very excited when I got a job at my dream web production company. The company has only been around for 20 years, and most of my co-workers are from the same generation. In turn, this creates a lively and peaceful workplace where I can spend fulfilling days with great co-workers. I'm lucky to work at the perfect place for me. I'm also lucky in my personal life because I married Eric Simpson, who is 2 years older than me, a year ago. As I got older, 30s, I started to worry about getting married. But Eric and I got married after dating for 2 years after meeting at a mixer. For me, who was eager to get married, he was like a hero who was there to help. We rent an apartment right now, but Eric, who designed our dream home from scratch, plans to finish it soon. For Eric, building a house before he turns 30 was always a goal. It may seem a little early to do so less than a year after we got married. He told me that he couldn't forget the place where he grew up when I asked him why. Eric's family home is in a wealthy neighborhood and has a huge estate with a fancy exterior and interior that everyone wants to see. Having grown up in a home like this, he also wants to have a home like his parents as soon as possible. The house of my in-laws comes to mind when I think of our future home. The head of the big trading company, Simpson Corporation, is Eric's dad. It is said that the average annual bonus for regular employees at Simpson Corporation is $100,000. His father's salary must be unbelievably high. I don't know the exact amount, but Eric was born into a wealthy family and had an easy childhood as an only child. In a critical tone, I could say that he was a son who was raised in a greenhouse and was spoiled. Even though Eric isn't always like that, I often feel that way when I see him act like that. As soon as we met at the mixer, he started bragging about how rich his family was and how well he grew up, enjoying seeing how other people reacted. He will eventually become the next president of Simpson Corporation if things go as planned. It makes sense that he would be proud, so I didn't worry about it. Instead, I had always been shy around relationships and was wondering if I could ever date someone and get married at the same time. Meeting him was a blessing. Everything went smoothly, from meeting at the mixer to starting a relationship to getting married. My life as a newlywed with the cocky and self-centered Eric was going great. My in-laws live in a huge, fancy house, but they are honest and have good morals, and they treat me with respect. I feel overwhelmed and careful every time I visit them. But since they are now my family, I don't find it hard to be around them. Eric first brought up the idea of our dream home 3 months after we got married. It's on my mind that we should soon get our dream home. Kim, what do you think? You've always said that getting a house early in life was your dream. It's only been 3 months since we got married, but if that's what you want, I'm all for it. His suggestion didn't come out of the blue because I knew that building a house was his dream, and I was happy to go along with it. Thanks. After that, I'll get in touch with an architect who knows my dad right away. I believe he will be able to help us soon. Okay, I'll let you do it. Please go ahead. Eric seemed pleased to move the conversation forward, so I immediately agreed with a smile. However, at that time, I didn't yet know that owning the dream home Eric spoke of would later become a major source of trouble. As the plans progressed smoothly, I set one condition for Eric about the home mortgage. Considering both our incomes, how about I cover 40% and you cover 60% of the payments? When I asked, Eric immediately nodded and smiled, saying, "Of course." In fact, based on income alone, it would be more reasonable for Eric to bear a greater share, but as a working woman on my own, I wanted to take responsibility for our new home, so I proposed this distribution. However, if the mortgage were to be in joint names, there could be potential trouble if anything happened, so the mortgage was put in Eric's name. As an active employee and the future president of Simpson Corporation, it was reasonable to have the mortgage under his name. Eric seemed uninterested in the details of the mortgage, quickly agreeing to my terms and the name, then starting to talk about the exterior and layout of the house. How about making the staircase leading from the living room to the second floor a spiral staircase and having an open floor plan? It's nice to have a sense of openness, isn't it? Also, building up to the third floor would be a waste because it would cost more for things like exterior painting, so it would be better to have a basement. I agree with the open floor plan, but a basement is a bit unusual, isn't it? The word basement didn't quite fit the atmosphere of the house Eric was describing, and I was momentarily puzzled. It saves money compared to building up, and a basement can be useful in case of emergencies. I'm planning to use it as a bedroom for now, but if you don't like it, we can make the bedroom on the second floor and use the basement as a storage room. I was just surprised because I didn't think you would be particular about having a basement. I felt a slight discomfort with the assumption that a basement was a given, but I decided it was just one of his preferences. Besides, as he said, having a basement might indeed be handy for storage space, so I agreed to it. Although it might be unusual for a woman, I'm not really interested in designing layouts from scratch. Therefore, I had no problem letting Eric make all the decisions. When I agreed to include a basement, Eric's eyes seemed to sparkle even more. It appeared that he really wanted a basement. I found him very attractive when he talked about his passion for our dream home. He continued to visit the architectural firm multiple times, refining the floor plan through trial and error. I joined him when I could, but often work popped up suddenly on weekends, and there were days I couldn't accompany him. However, Eric didn't seem to mind when I couldn't join the meetings. On the contrary, he was happy that all his requests were being implemented and always came back satisfied. "How did the meeting go, Eric?" I asked. "Yeah, everything is going smoothly. I can't wait for our dream home," he replied excitedly, his eyes shining. He seemed to be eagerly anticipating our new home. A few months later, our new house was finally completed. It seemed the contractor had prioritized Eric's requests from the architect's instructions. I was immensely grateful to the construction team. The newly completed house had a chic color scheme and a dignified yet stylish construction. Although I had visited the site several times during construction, seeing the completed home made even me, who isn't particularly fussy about houses, excited and thrilled. After thoroughly admiring our new home, Eric took several photos from various angles with his smartphone. However, just as the new house was completed, Eric's return time from work began to get later. "It's a busy period right now. Sorry, but I'll be coming home late for a while, so don't worry about dinner," he said, rubbing his hands together apologetically. Watching him, I was convinced that he was truly overwhelmed with work. As the heir to Simpson Corporation, Eric carries more responsibilities than typical business operations. No doubt he's also learning the ropes of company management from his father, the president. "Are you okay? Don't overdo it," I told him, concerned. From that day, His return times really did become later. I also have busy periods at work, but I'm not as late coming home as Eric is. Currently, for Eric, who is always so busy, I make sure to keep the home comfortable at all times. However, I began to feel a sense of unease growing slowly. On the rare occasions he came home early, he would seriously search on his smartphone for furniture and appliances that would suit our new home. During one of these moments, I wondered, this bed and storage shelf, I think they'd fit perfectly in our new home. The pictures showed a bed and storage shelf far too large for just the two of us. We're not the type to hoard things, so I wondered why we would need such large furniture. The design is nice, but why choose something so big? I asked. Eric's face, which had been enthusiastic, suddenly turned sour. We might need it if our family grows, right? Bigger cover is smaller, so it's better to have something larger. Family growing probably meant when we have children. At that moment, I realized something. Recently, Eric and I hadn't been intimate. Thinking back, this started around the time Eric began insisting on having a basement in our new home. It's strange for a newlywed couple to go months without intimacy. Once I became aware of it, what hadn't seemed like a big deal before felt like a significant issue. One night, I mustered the courage to talk about the growing distance in our marital life. Eric, maybe we could... It was embarrassing to initiate explicitly, so I tried to convey it through the atmosphere. Sorry, I'm just too tired today. Let's pick another day. He casually declined and then immediately covered himself with a blanket. It was a shock, rejected despite being the first time I had initiated, and by my new husband no less. There could have been a kinder way to decline, and doubts about his feelings began to arise. Initially, Eric was the one who actively initiated. Holding back tears, I quietly exhaled in the bed and fell asleep that night. Since then, there were no initiations from Eric, and his return times from work got even later. However, he was enthusiastic about furnishing our new home, and new furniture he ordered online continued to arrive. This weekend, we're scheduled to move into our new home. In line with this, he was happily purchasing new furniture online on his own. Finally, the weekend arrived, and the day of our move came. Messages confirming the day's move from both our parents arrived early in the morning, showing high interest in our new home. During the moving process, I stayed at the old house to oversee the packing, while Eric went ahead to the new house to direct the placement of furniture and the moving of items. "I'll wait for you at our new home," he said, holding the keys to the new house as he left. "Yes, please do." Thinking about starting our new life in the meticulously finished new home made my heart flutter with excitement. Soon after, the movers arrived and quickly began loading the boxes into the truck. As I watched the boxes gradually disappear, I thought about starting an enjoyable new life with Eric in our new home. "All the boxes are loaded now, so we'll head to the new home next," the mover said. "Thank you. Please continue to take care of things." After sending off the truck to the new home, I wiped down the room we had lived in out of gratitude and took a photo of the empty room as a keepsake. Well, I better head to the new home too. It's about time to head to the new home, which is just one train stop away. I grabbed my bag and stepped outside. While walking to the nearest station, my smartphone rang. The call was from the movers, who should have already been at the new home. "We've arrived at your new home, but there's no response to the doorbell, and the door is locked, so we can't get inside." "What? It's strange that there's no answer at the doorbell since Eric should be there. My husband should be inside. Perhaps he's just gone to the restroom. Could you try ringing again?" I suggested. I could hear them ring the doorbell again over the phone. "I'm sorry, but we've tried several times already, and it seems that no one is here," came the troubled reply. "I understand. I'm on my way there now and will arrive in about 15 minutes. Could you please wait for me?" Since ringing the doorbell repeatedly changed nothing, I asked them to wait until I arrived. While hurrying to the new home, I thought Eric might have stepped out somewhere. However, I couldn't have imagined the shocking situation that awaited me. After getting off the train one station away, I hurried to the new home. Upon arriving at the house with black walls, the movers were still waiting in front of the entrance, just like before. "I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting. I'll open the door right away," I said, feeling apologetic. I quickly unlocked the front door. Eric's shoes were not at the entrance, confirming that he had gone out. I hadn't expected him to go out during the move. He might have had urgent business, but he could have at least informed me. Despite feeling irritated, I continued directing the movers where to place the furniture. "All the items have now been brought in. Thank you for using our service," they informed me cheerfully. I expressed my gratitude and apologies again. Feeling tired, I decided to start unpacking the boxes. As I wondered what to do with the boxes that hadn't been assigned a storage place yet, I remembered the basement we had talked about before. Right. If I put them in the basement for now, at least the living room will be tidy. Maybe I should put these there for now. I carried a few lighter boxes down the stairs to the basement. Just as I was about to open the basement door, I heard a noise inside. Startled, I stepped back and listened closely. There were sounds of movement inside. My heart pounded loudly as I took a deep breath to calm myself. When I slightly opened the door, light spilled into the hallway, and I gasped. I couldn't see completely inside, but the mere thought of what was happening inside made my spine chill and my body tremble. I've been meticulous in building this basement, so there's no way anyone will find out, right? Thank you for preparing such a lovely room just for me." A young woman's affectionate voice and Eric's response reached my ears, leaving me speechless. What is happening? My mind was in disarray, unable to think when suddenly a woman's high-pitched voice mixed with sighs echoed through the hallway. No, that can't be. Unbelievable. I had a hunch something was off with my husband's recent behavior, but seeing it firsthand, I realized I was more shocked than I had anticipated. "I love you the most, Jennifer." "I'm so happy." Eric and Jennifer's voices, affirming their love for each other, seemed as if they were bound by fate. Who could have predicted that in our new home's basement, my husband would be indulging in an affair with a stranger? I clasped my trembling hands in front of my chest and then quietly closed the basement door, locking it. Desperately, I thought about what I should do next. Did you hear a noise just now? It must be your imagination, or perhaps it's the movers. Eric and the woman seemed to notice the faint noise I made, but showed no sign of coming out of the basement, even to dress. While astounded at their nerve to commit infidelity in the basement on moving day, I felt a deep anger from within. What have they done to me? We were still newlyweds, supposed to start a happy life in our dream home. As I clenched my fists so hard that my nails left marks on my palms, a surge of vengeance against Eric welled up inside me. I wanted to catch them in the act of their affair at all costs. I decided to act immediately. Quickly, I contacted my parents and in-laws, as well as Eric's aunt and uncle who live nearby. When I told them I wanted to show them the new home, family and relatives quickly came over. My parents and in-laws, especially, seemed to be fully prepared, as they had already planned to visit today. Eric's relatives also arrived, and I felt inwardly satisfied. Thank you all for coming. There are still some boxes left, but please make yourselves comfortable. I guided everyone around the new house with a bright smile, hiding the flames of revenge burning inside me. What a wonderful home! I never imagined you could live in such a grand house, my father-in-law remarked. It's all thanks to the Simpson family. No, I left everything about the new house to Eric, so I didn't help at all, I replied, trying to maintain a pleasant facade. That's right. This house was built with a mortgage taken by our son and Kelly. We are grateful to have such a wonderful woman as our daughter-in-law, my mother-in-law added modestly as they cheerfully toured the upstairs rooms. Then, they descended to the first floor. I heard from Eric that there's a special room in this house, my uncle mentioned. Yes, that's right. Eric even bragged about it to us, my aunt answered with a laugh. I mentally pumped my fist, pleased that both my uncle and aunt knew Eric was proud of this house. Yes, especially the basement, which Eric took great care in designing. Let me show you now, I said, leading everyone down the stairs to the basement. It seemed that Eric and the unknown woman's affair was still ongoing, as I could hear her sweet voice. Here is the basement that Eric particularly focused on. Please go inside, I said, turning the key and flinging the door open forcefully. The scene that awaited us was one I had anticipated. What? What is this? My father-in-law exclaimed in shock upon seeing his son's disgraceful behavior. Finally noticing us, Eric and the woman stopped in shock, still embraced. Why are my parents here, and Kelly and my aunt and uncle too? Eric stammered, his face flushed with panic. Ah, don't look at us, they shouted in a panic. But we were the ones who wanted to scream upon stumbling upon this scene. You too? What are you doing here? My mother-in-law yelled, her face turning red. My parents were too shocked to speak, standing dumbfounded. Wait, listen to me. Eric tried to make excuses, but in this situation, his words lacked any convincing power, and he stumbled over his words. Huh? Hey, that woman. She isn't an employee at our company, is she? My father-in-law muttered, reacting to the mention of our employee. The woman suddenly looked frightened and pulled a blanket over her head. Seeing her reaction, my father-in-law looked at Eric in astonishment. Is that woman someone from the company? I asked my father-in-law. He nodded, his voice trembling. Yes, she's one of our new employees. What? I exclaimed, confused. New employees were usually around 22, fresh from university, or 18 if they had just graduated high school. I recalled that Eric had proposed building this house around May this year. At that time, he was enthusiastic about designing the basement and was excited about purchasing large storage units and a bed whose purpose was unclear. I had thought it was his love for a future family and his unique interests. But putting together the pieces from earlier, the situation seemed very different. And it was around the time when our intimate life as a couple ceased and he started coming home late due to a busy period. So maybe you met this new employee in April and immediately started an affair. You wanted to build a basement to sneak her in secretly and needed a big bed and storage to enjoy your rendezvous here. I confronted Eric with the suspicions I had been harboring. It's not like that, Kelly. The basement was supposed to be a space for hobbies and could also be used for storage. I chose the furniture thinking of the future. Eric's excuses seemed desperate and unconvincing. I felt the love I had for you cooling rapidly like the receding tide. Just for storage? You specifically wanted a basement. I believed in your passion for our dream home. That's why I finally agreed to the basement. But looking at this situation now, don't you think it's unreasonable to ask me to believe you? I said, feeling a surge of betrayal and anger. Eric looked down, unable to respond. I had never imagined that our new life in this eagerly awaited home would be tainted by such a betrayal. Betrayed by my husband's affair with a younger woman. My heart felt like it was being torn apart. Do you understand what you've done? Having an affair with your boss, who's 10 years older than you? You've got some nerve, I continued, my voice trembling. I pulled off the blanket covering the woman's head and stared into her eyes. I didn't know Eric was married, she said tearfully, looking anxious. But my father-in-law wouldn't have it. That's impossible. Everyone in the company knows Eric is married. We even announced it recently in the company newsletter. You might try to claim ignorance because you're new. But even then, looking at this big house, do you think saying you didn't know would be an acceptable excuse? The woman shrieked briefly in fear as she tried to stammer out an excuse. Considering they were caught naked together in the basement, any excuse seemed futile. It's not true. Jennifer really didn't know. It was all my fault. Please don't blame her. Eric desperately defended her, making me utterly despise him. In this situation where I was the most hurt, I felt he should be protecting his wife, not his mistress. My parents, in-laws, and other relatives all shared the same reaction, their faces hardening in disapproval. Finally realizing no one supported him, Eric seemed stunned by the gravity of the situation. The other woman finally broke down crying. "What are we supposed to do now?" she asked, her voice shaking. "It should be clear with a little thought," I replied coldly. "But I can't understand the nerve to cheat so easily. Right, Kelly? This was just a momentary lapse. Let's make up and start over from the beginning. I mean, there's no way I could seriously fall in love with such a young woman. It was just a fling." Eric's words left us all in astonishment. The woman next to him, who had been crying and trembling, turned pale with shock at his sudden betrayal. Seeing Eric desperately trying to save his own skin made me feel like I was truly seeing his true nature. Who would think of repairing a relationship with him in such a situation? It was just baffling how naive Eric could be. How can you say such a thing? You really don't understand people's feelings. I thought today was the start of a happy life for the two of us in this house, and you ruined that. So, from now on, you think a momentary lapse of judgment is an excuse? And you were rude not just to me, but to her as well. I wish you had understood that infidelity comes with risk. If you're going to do it, be prepared to lose everything and protect her to the end. That's because I was immature. Eric still didn't seem to understand his position, and his attitude only made me more disappointed. My father-in-law also showed his displeasure with Eric's frivolous behavior. Will you be quiet and listen? What is this frivolous attitude of yours? You should be sincerely apologizing to Kelly first, shouldn't you? Thinking only of saving yourself is the height of foolishness. Everyone was overwhelmed by my father-in-law's intense presence. I did not raise a son like this, someone who lacks human decency and can't distinguish between right and wrong, cannot hold the position of future president of the company. And you, miss, are fired effective today. Eric and the woman gaped in shock at this sudden declaration. Wait, Dad, please don't take away my position. I'll do any job. Just reconsider that part, please, Eric pleaded. The woman also hurriedly added, President, I am terribly sorry. I got into a company I could brag about to my parents as a new graduate, and to be fired over something like this. What will they say? I don't mind being transferred. Just please don't fire me. I beg you. The two desperately begged for my father-in-law's forgiveness. However, my father-in-law's expression did not change at all. It was clear he was completely unmoved by their words. After a brief silence, he inhaled deeply and rebuked them. You two, you're apologizing to the wrong person. The person you should be apologizing to is Kelly. If you can't even understand who you should be apologizing to, there's no way I can entrust the future of Simpson Corporation to you. Do you understand? Finally receiving their last warning, the two screamed and clung to each other. Their figures looked pitiful, but I felt nothing more. If you understand, can you please leave now? I said indifferently. Kelly, please forgive me. I'm apologizing like this. Please, Eric begged. I apologize too. Please forgive me. The woman also desperately apologized. Despite their insincere apologies, they clung shamelessly, and I glared at them. Stop insulting people. Leave now, I shouted. Perhaps realizing I was serious, the two were startled and rushed out of the house. Afterward, we who remained just looked at each other, trying to calm ourselves. My in-laws repeatedly apologized to both my parents and me. While I was still angry at Eric, I am truly grateful to my in-laws, and I vowed to start a new life from now on. Later, we divorced, and I successfully received a large settlement from Eric. Though Eric was the son of a wealthy family, without his parents' help, he didn't have the financial means to pay the settlement in one go. He would likely need to repay his debts moving forward. As declared, my father-in-law fired Eric and the woman from the company and also decided to disinherit Eric from the Simpson family. Eric seemed to cling to his father until the end, but his father just told him, "I can't trust Simpson Corporation to someone like you," and walked away. In the end, the business was taken over by a smart executive that my father-in-law trusted. Eric wasn't ready to be president, but I didn't notice some things because he was my son. My husband's father looked at Eric calmly, acting like the president of a big company. Eric bought our old new home, and I chose to leave it because it held bad memories for me. It was better to be away from that house. Eric owned the new house, so he had to pay back the mortgage. But since he doesn't have a job right now, he probably has a hard time with money. The woman, on the other hand, left Eric when she found out that he was no longer the heir. She most likely only wanted Eric's money in the end. When you think about it, it makes sense. Having an affair with a man 10 years older than her wasn't the best thing for her. Of course, I also asked her to pay me a fair amount. Since neither of them had a job, they would both have to pay back the settlements. Eric had lost his job, his wife, and his relationship with his lover. He also had a lot of debt. I don't feel sorry for him. He did everything here. I don't know how Eric will get better without his dad's help, but I hope he never comes back to see me again. To start a new life, I then moved to a rental apartment that was good for living alone. I'm enjoying a free life while sitting on my favorite pieces of furniture. The people I work with are also fun to talk to, and I've met someone who interests me. If I ever get married again, I will talk about it with my partner in depth and build a house that we both like. That is my promise.